It's as sweet as the strawberries you grow. 기영자.
It was a warm spring day. Inside the strawberry greenhouse, Do-hyun and I cautiously held hands. A shy smile spread across my face as Do-hyun looked into my eyes and whispered softly,
기영자, you are not alone anymore.
Filled with the sweet scent of strawberries, we embraced quietly, feeling the warmth of each other's bodies. Oh! It was the moment. My heart and body, which had been asleep for so long, finally awakened. Forgetting our age and opening our hearts completely to each other, I felt, with my entire being, that I was loved as a woman once again. However, before reaching this beautiful moment, unimaginable trials, misunderstandings, and surprising twists were waiting for me. What exactly happened, you ask? If you are curious about the full story of this touching twilight romance, please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. And please leave your warm support in the comments as well. Now, shall we listen to my story? My name is Yoo Kyung-ja, and I am 62 years old this year. I live alone in a quiet rural village on the outskirts of North Gyeongsang Province. It has already been over 8 years since my husband passed away. Since then, I have been spending my days growing strawberries in a plastic greenhouse. Every morning at 5 a.m., I get up without fail and head to the greenhouse. My daily routine began by checking on the strawberry seedlings, bathed in the morning sunlight filtering through the clear plastic. Watching the small white flowers bloom and the strawberries slowly ripen into a deep red gave me a sense of comfort. In fact, I have always been a woman of few words. I have lived my life exchanging only necessary greetings with the people in the village. Even so, the neighbors often told me that I was a diligent and patient person. Hearing that made me feel a bit embarrassed but also grateful at the same time. Soft music from the radio always played inside the greenhouse. During lunch, I would sit for a moment to eat my steaming packed lunch while looking out the window. Just watching the distant mountains and the changing scenery with each season seemed to ease the fatigue of the day. And sometimes in those moments, a sudden wave of loneliness would wash over me. Especially on my way home after closing up. In the evening, the feeling of being alone hit me even harder. But I tried not to dwell on those feelings for too long. Because the strawberries were waiting for my care, and there was work to be done the next day. I suppose that is what farming is like. It is a job that requires you to move diligently, with the flow of the seasons, without even a moment to spare for sadness or loneliness. In the cycle of planting seedlings in spring, watering them in summer, harvesting in autumn, and preparing for the next year in winter, I have quietly kept my place. It was last spring that my once ordinary and quiet daily life began to change little by little. Back then, I had no idea how much that change would come to mean in my life. But this year, an unexpected change found its way into my mundane routine. Word reached me that someone was moving into the old house across the road from my greenhouse. Among the villagers, rumors spread that the person was moving down from the city. When I first heard the news, I didn't pay much attention to it. I just thought of it as gaining a new neighbor. After all, people moving in and out of the village was a common occurrence. But a few days later, when I went out to the greenhouse early in the morning, I saw someone moving busily on the other side. That person was none other than Mr. Do-hyun Lee. He was a tall man with graying hair who appeared to be in his late 60s. He was wearing worn-out work clothes and tidying up the area around his greenhouse. But his movements looked somewhat clumsy. It seemed like farming was new to him.
Hello. I'm Do-hyun Lee, the one who just moved in.
One afternoon, he finally came over to greet me. His voice was polite and gentle. I looked up in surprise. Up close, he had a gentle and thoughtful expression. I could feel a refined air about him, as if he had lived in the city for a long time. Oh, hello. My name is Kyungja Yoonja. I gave an awkward greeting in return. It had been a while since I talked to a stranger, so my heart fluttered a little. Mr. Lee looked around my strawberry greenhouse with a look of admiration.
Wow, the strawberries have grown so beautifully. I'm new to farming, so I have a lot to learn. Please, look after me.
I could feel his sincerity in his humble tone. I found out later that Mr. Lee had run an Oriental medicine clinic in Seoul for a long time before deciding to retire to the countryside. He was starting a brand new life at the age of 66. For the first few days, we only exchanged simple greetings. But as we got more comfortable, he would occasionally come to ask for farming advice. Whenever he asked about basic things, like when to water or how to manage the temperature, I shared what I knew. Ever since Mr. Lee settled in across the way, small changes began to happen in my daily life. When I came out to the greenhouse in the morning, I would naturally glance over and sometimes wave to each other from a distance. It was nothing significant, but for me, having been alone for so long, it felt like a strange kind of excitement. Then, on one such ordinary day, something unexpected happened to me. It happened on a particularly sweltering afternoon. Even though it was only the end of May, the temperature inside the greenhouse soared over 35 degrees, making it stiflingly hot. I was working hard to finish harvesting the strawberries earlier than usual, but I started feeling dizzy. At first, I simply thought it was because of the heat. I kept working, thinking I would be fine if I just drank some water and took a short break. But as time passed, my symptoms got worse. My vision blurred and I started to lose strength in my hands. Wait, something's wrong, I muttered to myself and tried to hold onto a greenhouse pillar, but my legs gave out and I collapsed to the floor. I couldn't breathe properly, my chest felt tight, and my whole body was drenched in sweat. My mind went blank, and I felt faint. Fear washed over me, wondering if something truly terrible was happening. Living alone, I was at a complete loss as to what to do when something like this happened. I wanted to shout for help, but I couldn't even make a sound. That was when it happened. I heard hurried footsteps from afar, and then the sound of someone opening the greenhouse door.
Kyungja, are you hurt?
It was Do-hyun's voice. I don't know how he realized something was wrong, but thankfully, he had discovered me, collapsed and rushed over. Skashed over. Without showing any panic, Do-hyun calmly helped me get back up. His touch felt incredibly steady and reassuring. Perhaps because he was a former Oriental medicine doctor, he seemed used to these kinds of emergencies.
Breathe slowly. It's okay. I'm here with you.
He moved me to a shaded area of the greenhouse, then pulled out some cold bottled water from somewhere and put it in my hand. As I sipped the water, my throat moistened and I was able to breathe a little better. But Do-hyun didn't stop there. He took a small packet of medicine from his pocket, mixed it with water, and handed it to me.
This is an herbal medicine that lowers fever and restores energy. Try drinking this.
After I drank the medicine, my dizziness subsided, almost miraculously. Only then did I feel like I was regaining my senses. Do-hyun placed his hand on my forehead to check my temperature, and also checked my pulse. I thought to myself, he really is a doctor after all.
Fortunately, it seems like early symptoms of heat stroke. You shouldn't overwork yourself on such a hot day.
Listening to his calm and professional explanation, I felt much more at ease. It sent shivers down my spine, thinking about how close I came to a serious disaster if Do-hyun hadn't been there. Do-hyun stayed by my side, watching over me until I had fully recovered. He checked on me every now and then, and kept making sure I had water. Having lived alone for so long, I couldn't even remember the last time I had received such thoughtful care from someone. It took about an hour for my body to return to normal. Only then was I able to properly express my gratitude to Mr. Do-hyun. I felt both apologetic and grateful, thinking about how much of a burden I had become. From that day on, my feelings toward Mr. Do-hyun began to change little by little. I realized he wasn't just a neighbor next door, but someone I could truly trust. And he also began to look after me with even more attention. From the day after that incident, Mr. Do-hyun's quiet consideration began. When I went out to the greenhouse early in the morning, I would find a small gift left at my door. At first, I was truly surprised. The first thing I discovered was a small thermos. When I opened the lid, I found warm jujube tea inside. The sweet and healthy scent tickled the tip of my nose. Next to it was a small note attached.
It said, "Take good care of yourself, and don't overdo it."
It was written with such sincerity. Why go to such lengths? I muttered to myself, but the tea was truly delicious. My body warmed up, and I felt a sense of comfort in my heart. I hadn't received such thoughtful care in a long time, so it felt awkward, but at the same time, it warmed a corner of my heart. The next day, at the same time, I checked the door and found another gift waiting there. This time, it was some herbal tea that seemed homemade, along with a small bag of nuts. Walnuts, almonds, and jujubes were packaged with great care. Thus, finding Mr. Do-hyun's small gifts every morning became part of my daily routine. Some days it was honey water, and other days it was herbal tea he had brewed himself. Sometimes there was citron tea or ginger tea, both known to be good for the body. They were gifts that made me feel his meticulous care. For the first few days, it felt truly burdensome. I wondered if it was okay for me to keep being indebted to him, and I felt like I should return the favor. However, even when we crossed paths, Mr. Do never mentioned those things. He would just exchange a natural greeting and go on his way. Mr. Do-hyun, I feel so bad when you give me these things every day. One day, when I gathered the courage to tell him directly, he smiled brightly and waved his hand.
It's nothing, Ms. Youngja. It's only natural for neighbors to look out for each other. I'm just giving them to you so you can look after your health. So please don't feel burdened.
Thanks to his natural attitude, I also gradually began to feel more at ease. It became a habit to check the doorstep before opening the greenhouse door every morning. I even started to have a small sense of anticipation, wondering what he might have prepared for today. Some days, there were even snacks. They were things like sweet pumpkin rice balls or rice cakes that looked homemade. When I tasted them, I could really feel how much care went into them. I was amazed that a man living alone would prepare such things. And I was also grateful. After about a month, those gestures started to feel natural to me. Whenever I woke up in the morning and headed to the greenhouse, the first thing I'd think about was what he might have given me that day. Before I knew it, my day was beginning with a small gift from Mr. Do-hyun. Sometimes I also felt like I wanted to return the favor first. So when the strawberries were ripe, I would pick the prettiest and sweetest ones and leave them quietly in front of Mr. Do-hyun's greenhouse door. Then, the next day, Mr. Do-hyun would wave at me from a distance to show his appreciation. That quiet and subtle exchange of kindness continued. Though we didn't express it in words, those were warm times when the feeling of looking after each other was conveyed. Having been alone for a long time, every little bit of attention like this was a great comfort to me. But one day, something unexpected happened, and a deeper change came over our relationship. It happened on a sunny afternoon in early June. I was working in the strawberry greenhouse as usual when the sky suddenly began to be covered with dark clouds. I thought the weather felt strange, and then, in an instant, large raindrops began to fall. At first, I thought it would be a brief shower, but as time passed, the rain came down even harder. The sound of the rain hitting the greenhouse roof became so loud that it was difficult to continue working. Looking out the window, I saw that it had turned into a torrential downpour. Just then, I heard the sound of someone running quickly toward me. I looked toward the greenhouse entrance and saw Mr. Do-hyun standing there, soaked to the bone by the rain. It seemed like he had been looking for a place to take shelter between the greenhouses and came to mine because it was the closest.
Miss Kyungja, may I take shelter from the rain for a moment?
Mr. Do-hyun was standing at the door, politely asking for permission. Water was dripping from his hair, and it was truly heartbreaking to see. I quickly gestured for him to come inside. "Please come on in. You need to dry your clothes first." I handed a towel I always kept with me to Mr. Do-hyun as he stepped into the greenhouse. He thanked me and wiped his wet hair and face. The inside of the greenhouse was warm, but I thought he might be cold because of his wet clothes. So I hurried to pour him some warm tea from a thermos.
Thank you. The rain really started so suddenly.
Mr. Do-hyun took the warm tea and out a sigh of relief. I sat down next to him, and we drank tea together while watching the rain outside the window. The sound of the rain enveloping the entire house made me feel somehow cozy. At first, we were just drinking tea in silence. But as time passed, a conversation began quite naturally. Do-hyun was the first to speak up.
On rainy days like this, I often think about the past. When my wife was alive, we used to drink tea and talk together on days like this.
His voice was tinged with longing. Without realizing it, a corner of my heart ached. I had a similar experience myself. I feel the same way. When my husband was here, we used to play the radio and talk about old times on rainy days, and I miss those moments now. When I said that, Do-hyun nodded as if he understood. In that moment, a strange sense of empathy seemed to form between us. The kind of understanding that only those who share the same wounds can have. Do-hyun slowly began to share his story. He calmly spoke about how lonely he had been since losing his wife to cancer 3 years ago, and how empty his life in Seoul had felt. He told me that was why he came here, wanting to make a fresh start in a completely new place. Encouraged by his sincerity, I decided to open up my heart as well. I carefully shared the feelings I hadn't been able to tell anyone about how hard it was after losing my husband and how lonely I felt working the farm alone. The sound of the rain softened, and we found comfort in sharing our painful memories. It felt like the sorrow and loneliness I had carried alone for so long were becoming a little lighter. Just having someone sincerely listen to my story was a great comfort. The rain had stopped by then, but we continued to talk. We were talking as comfortably as old friends about memories of our youth, our dreams, and our hopes for the future.
Talking to you like this, Gyeongja, makes me feel much more at ease.
I replied to Do-hyun's words, saying that I felt the same way. I was grateful to have met someone I could finally speak to with my heart at ease. After that day, it felt like we had grown a little closer. I felt like we had become more than just neighbors, but people who could understand each other's hearts. However, we never expected, at that time, what kind of impact that change would have on the village. After that conversation in the rain, we naturally grew even closer. Do-hyun began to check on me more often than before, and I welcomed him warmly whenever he came to ask for advice on farming. Just the fact that we had someone to lean on made my heart feel warm. But what we didn't realize was the fact that the villagers had been watching us. In a small village, even a minor change quickly becomes the talk of the town. Neighbors who showed little interest at first began to whisper among themselves. The first one to notice was Mrs. Han Suni, the village head's wife. She was always very interested in village news anyway. One day I heard her talking to a few women in front of the community center, and my name came up.
It seems Gyeongja and the new guy Do-hyun have become quite close, she said,
and others started to show interest as well. Some said they saw us talking face to face often, and others claimed to have spotted Do-hyun heading toward my greenhouse every day. At first, it was just simple curiosity. But as time went on, the story started to get exaggerated. Rumors spread that Do-hyun brought me gifts every day, and soon it turned into gossip that we had a special relationship. The real problem was Mrs. Kim Young-suk. She had taken an interest in Do-hyun from the moment he first arrived in the village. Since she lives alone, I think she had her heart set on a refined man like him. Seeing me get close to Do-hyun must have made her quite unhappy. "Oh my, I guess it's nice for two widowers to find each other," she said. When I heard Young-suk making such snide remarks in front of others, my heart sank. Her tone of voice was full of jealousy and envy. Even when I went to the village market, I felt that people's gazes had changed. When I walked in, some would stop talking, stare at me, or intentionally try to avoid me. It was truly awkward and uncomfortable. The hardest part was when I had to face direct criticism. One day, I went to the post office to collect my pension, and a few people waiting ahead were talking loudly.
At her age, acting so immature, her husband hasn't even been gone that long, and she's already eyeing another man.
The moment I heard that, my face turned bright red. It was clearly aimed at me. But I couldn't say a word. And I didn't think making excuses would improve the situation anyway. What was even more upsetting was that even people I used to be close to started distancing themselves from me. Some would barely acknowledge my greetings or they would pretend they didn't even see me. For someone like me who has lived in this village for a long time, it was a huge shock. It seems Do Hyeon noticed this atmosphere as well. He became much more cautious than usual. When we met, he seemed conscious of people's eyes, and our conversations weren't as natural as before.
Youngja, I'm sorry for causing such a scene since coming here.
My heart ached when you apologized so cautiously, Do Hyeon. I couldn't understand at all what we had done wrong. We were just neighbors offering each other comfort. I felt frustrated about why we had to be targets of gossip. As the village gaze turned cold, I began to shrink away. I started checking my surroundings when leaving the greenhouse and avoided running into people. I thought the rumors would die down if I just kept to myself. But I suppose I was being too naive. The situation didn't improve just because we were careful. If anything, the jealousy and misunderstandings of some people only deepened. And in the end, something horrific that I never imagined happened. I went to bed earlier than usual that night. It had been a day exhausting from the cold glares of the villagers. The next morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. as always and headed to the greenhouse. I felt like something was wrong from a distance. The entrance to the greenhouse looked more cluttered than usual. The moment I approached and saw it, I froze in my tracks. The strawberry greenhouse I had cared for so dearly was in ruins. The plastic was torn in many places, and the inside was even more devastating. The moment I opened the door and stepped inside, my legs gave out, and I collapsed. The strawberry seedlings I had nurtured with such care were mercilessly trampled. Some were pulled out by the roots, and others had their stems broken and scattered on the floor. Who on earth did this, and why? I muttered to myself while looking around, but the damage was severe. The strawberries I had spent months raising with care were all destroyed overnight. The berries that were ripening red were scattered on the floor and crushed. Tears poured out of my eyes. The sense of hopelessness was greater than the anger. I couldn't understand who I had wronged to deserve such a thing. I had lived quietly in this village without ever causing anyone harm. As I sat in a corner of the greenhouse in a daze, I heard footsteps. It seemed Do Hyeon had come out earlier than usual and was on his way to his own greenhouse. He saw the state of my greenhouse, was shocked, and rushed over.
Youngja, what on earth happened here?
Even hearing Do Hyeon's shocked voice, I couldn't answer him properly. I could only just shed tears. My mind went blank thinking about who would do such a malicious thing to me and why. Do Hyeon looked around the greenhouse with a face full of anger. It seemed he realized right away that this was no simple prank. Seeing the seedlings destroyed so systematically, it was clear that someone had done it on purpose.
Youngja, has there been any incident that might have caused someone to hold a grudge against you?
He asked cautiously, but I really couldn't think of anything. I thought there was no way anyone would hold such a grudge against me, having lived quietly all my life. But at the same time, a sense of unease crept in from a corner of my mind that this might be related to the rumors recently circulating in the village. Looking around the greenhouse, the damage was truly severe. It wasn't just the strawberry seedlings that were ruined. Water buckets were overturned, and farming tools were scattered everywhere. It seemed like someone had intentionally tried to cause as much damage as possible. What upset me the most were the strawberries that were about to be harvested for the first time this year. They were red, ripe, and ready to be picked, but they were all scattered on the ground and ruined. Months of hard work had gone down the drain in a single morning. Do-hyun tried to comfort me, but I was in such shock that I couldn't do anything. I just sat on the ground staring at the ruined strawberry field and let the tears flow. It hurt even more to think about who could have committed such a malicious act. Looking around, I couldn't see any clues that would help identify the culprit. It seemed like someone had snuck in during the night to do this. But it must have taken a considerable amount of time to destroy everything so systematically. So I wondered how they could have done it without anyone noticing.
Kyungja, please don't be too heartbroken. I will definitely uncover the truth behind this.
Do-hyun said it with a determined look, but at that moment, I couldn't believe his words. My emotional wounds were already too deep, and I didn't want to trust anyone. I just kept thinking that I wished all of this was a nightmare. I stayed inside my house all day long. I didn't have the courage to face the ruined greenhouse again, nor the confidence to face the villagers. The thought of who could have done such a terrible thing to me kept swirling in my mind. The next day, Do-hyun began his full-scale investigation. I wanted to stay locked in my house and do nothing, but Do-hyun didn't give up. He went around the village here and there from the morning. First, he went to visit the village head. I heard he asked if anything strange had happened lately or if anyone had been acting suspiciously. But it seems even the village head couldn't provide any particular clues. Then, he started visiting the people who lived near the greenhouse one by one. He checked everything, asking if they had heard any strange noises that night or seen anyone passing by. He was truly persistent, investigating like a detective. Most of the villagers were cooperative. I wanted to help after seeing how sincere Do-hyun was. But even after a few days, there were no real results. Everyone said they were fast asleep that night and didn't hear a thing. Then, on the third day, Do-hyun obtained some special information. Grandma Park, who lives at the edge of the village, testified that she saw someone heading toward our greenhouse late that night.
It was around midnight and I saw someone holding a flashlight heading toward Kyungja's greenhouse.
According to Grandma Park's testimony, the person was a woman of average height. She also said she saw them return the same way about an hour later. It was finally the first real clue we had. Based on this information, Do-hyun began the investigation more actively. He started narrowing down the list of people in the village who might have been out at that time. And he began checking everyone's alibis one by one. A few days later, definitive evidence emerged. The local market owner provided an important testimony. It was that Kim Young-suk had acted strangely when she came to the market the day before the incident. The owner said Young-suk was unusually irritable. She also said she was bad-mouthing Do-hyun and me, saying people like us deserved to be taught a lesson. Upon hearing this, Do-hyun intuitively began to suspect Young-suk. So he carefully began to look into those around her. Then, more concrete evidence started to appear. As a close neighbor of Young-suk testified that she had gone to bed later than usual that night. And they also said she had a wound on her hand the next morning. It was highly likely she had been pricked by strawberry thorns. The smoking gun was found in the trash bin behind Young Suk's house. Do-hyun happened to pass by and discovered gloves, discarded there with strawberry leaves stuck to them. They were exactly the same gloves that Young Suk used every day. All the evidence was pointing directly at Kim Young Suk. Do-hyun finally went to visit Young Suk in person. Even Young Suk, who had been feigning ignorance at first, couldn't deny it anymore in the face of such clear evidence. I thought Do-hyun would be interested in me, but he only cared about Gyeongja, so I got angry. Do-hyun informed me that Young Suk had eventually confessed to everything. It was such an absurd and ridiculous reason. She had ruined my greenhouse out of pure jealousy. Do-hyun meticulously recorded the entire process and reported it all to me. The moment I learned the truth, I was overcome with complex emotions. I was angry, but at the same time I was deeply moved by how much effort Do-hyun had put in for my sake.
Gyeongja, now that everything has been brought to light, we need to reveal the truth to the villagers.
I nodded at Do-hyun's words. I couldn't live under this unfair accusation any longer. And I thought everyone should know how hard Do-hyun had worked for me. After a week of thorough investigation, the truth had finally been revealed. Now all that remained was to disclose everything to the villagers and clear up the misunderstandings about me. Finally, the day arrived when the truth would be revealed to all the gathered residents at the village hall. With a trembling heart, I entered the hall with Do-hyun. The cold gazes that had been directed at me were still daunting, but I felt it was time to tell the truth. Do-hyun explained the investigation process and the evidence step by step. He detailed everything, starting from Mrs. Park's eyewitness account to the decisive evidence left by Kim Young Suk. The villagers began to look increasingly surprised. The most shocking moment was when Kim Young Suk stood up and admitted to the truth herself. With her head bowed low, she spoke in a trembling voice.
I am truly sorry. I was blinded by jealousy and committed those acts.
The hall was instantly engulfed in silence. The faces of those who had suspected and criticized Do-hyun and me were filled with embarrassment and regret. Especially those who had openly avoided me could not even lift their heads. The village head stepped forward and officially offered an apology to Do-hyun and me. He also promised that Young Suk's actions would be dealt with severely. One by one, the villagers approached me to say they were sorry. After the meeting ended, I returned to the greenhouse, quietly with Do-hyun. Now that the misunderstandings and grievances had been resolved, my heart felt much lighter. But at the same time, a flood of complex emotions toward Do-hyun washed over me. Do-hyun, thank you so much. And I'm sorry. When I said that, Do-hyun shook his head. A warm smile spread across his face.
What do you have to be sorry for, Gyeongja? I am the one who is sorry for putting you through such a difficult time.
We stood side by side in front of the damaged strawberry greenhouse and looked at each other. It felt like the feelings I had been suppressing were slowly rising to the surface. In Do-hyun's eyes, there was a deep affection that I hadn't noticed before. Just then, Do-hyun carefully took my hand. At his warm and reassuring touch, I felt my heart melting away. The door to my heart, which had been closed for so long, was slowly opening.
Gyeongja, I truly cherish you.
My heart began to beat rapidly at his sincere confession. I realized that I too had started to see Do-hyun as someone special at some point. However, because of everything that had happened, I had been suppressing those feelings. We looked into each other's eyes and slowly drew closer. We went inside the strawberry greenhouse and sat down quietly. Outside, the evening sunset was washing the entire greenhouse in a warm glow. In that moment, I felt the feelings of love blooming again in my long parched heart. It seems Do-hyun felt the same way. We embraced each other, and I felt true comfort and stability in his arms. Inside the greenhouse filled with the sweet scent of strawberries, we shared everything with each other. It was the moment my feelings as a woman, which had been dormant for so long, awakened once more. Do-hyun's warm touch soothed my body and soul, and I completely surrendered myself to him. That night, we comforted each other's loneliness and truly became one. Forgetting our age and sharing our passion, I felt with my whole being that a new spring had come to my life. The moment I opened not just my long-closed heart but my body to Do-hyun, I truly felt alive again. That night, we sat on one side of the strawberry field and talked while gazing at the stars. We carefully shared our dreams and plans for the future, confirming our love for each other. I was so grateful for the fact that I was no longer alone.
With you, Kyungja, I feel like I can overcome anything that comes our way.
Do-hyun's words were etched deep into my heart. I felt the same way too. I wanted to soothe each other's wounds and build new hope together. And so we confirmed our true love and promised a new beginning. With the village's misunderstandings cleared and our feelings for each other certain, we could now truly walk together. After that night, our daily lives changed completely. Waking up in the morning and realizing I was no longer alone felt like a dream. I didn't know that the path to the greenhouse, breathing the dawn air with Do-hyun, could be this happy. The first thing we did was restore the damaged strawberry greenhouse. Because Do-hyun helped so actively, we were able to clear it up faster than I thought. As we put on new plastic sheeting and replanted the trampled seedlings, we pledge a new start.
Kyungja, I'm by your side now, so please don't struggle alone.
I can't even describe how reassuring Do-hyun's words were. It truly meant we could share everything together. Farming was much easier doing it as a pair, and above all, it was fun. In the morning we would check the greenhouse temperature and water the plants together. Perhaps because he used to be an Oriental medicine doctor, Do-hyun had a very keen eye for the condition of the strawberries. He would spot seedlings with pests first and quickly notice any lack of nutrients. At lunchtime, we ate our packed lunches inside the greenhouse and talked about this and that. Do-hyun would tell me stories about his time in Seoul, and I shared memories of my husband from my youth. Now those memories no longer felt painful, but warm. In the evenings, we went back and forth between our two houses to share meals. Sometimes I cooked for Do-hyun, and other times, he brought healthy meals he had made himself. I realized anew how rich and joyful a meal that I used to eat alone could be. The villagers' attitudes also changed completely. Now the way they looked at us was warm and full of support. Young couples in particular would look at us and say how envious they were that we could love at such a late age. Kim Young-suk also apologized to me sincerely. It seemed she had spent a lot of time reflecting and feeling remorse in her own way. I forgave her, and now we live in the village without any awkwardness between us. When the season changed and the peak strawberry harvest arrived, we did our first harvest together. As we picked the red ripe strawberries one by one, we fed them to each other. It was as sweet a time as the sweet strawberries.
I didn't know the strawberries you grew, Gyeongja, would be this delicious. It seems you really grew them with love.
Do-hyun's praise made my face turn red, but I was truly happy. Because they were no longer just strawberries I grew alone, but strawberries we grew together. We started doing everything together, not just farming. We went grocery shopping together and attended village events as a pair. Sometimes we would head to a nearby city to watch a movie or eat something delicious. Best of all, I was no longer lonely at night. The time spent checking on each other, planning the next day's tasks, and ending the day together was truly precious. A year passed before we knew it, and we decided to officially remarry. Everyone in the village congratulated us, and we were able to have a modest yet warm wedding. Even though it was a marriage later in life, I felt as excited and happy as I did for my first. Now we run the strawberry farm together, living an ordinary but fulfilling life. We soothe each other's wounds, comfort each other's loneliness, and have become true companions. I am happy because we are together. Do-hyun. Whenever I say that, Do-hyun just smiles brightly and holds my hand tightly. Now, instead of fear or loneliness, our lives are full of warm love and hope. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to my long story until the end. I hope my story of finding new love at the age of 62 could give you a little hope and courage. It really seems that the saying age is just a number is true. I am glad that we were able to show that a fresh start is always possible and that true love knows no age. If there is anyone in a situation similar to mine, please do not give up. A warm connection will surely come to you as well. If you enjoyed this touching story, please be sure to press the subscribe and like buttons. And if you also set up notifications, I think I will be able to see you again with more warm and moving stories. I would be very grateful if you could share your support, encouragement, and similar experiences in the comments. I will see you next time with even better stories. This has been Wisdom Story, talking about the second half of life. Thank you sincerely for listening. Until the end,